Welcome to my YouTube channel, and in this video I'm going to talk about some of the myths and misconceptions surrounding busking. So these are going to be from the standpoint of the general public as well as other buskers. So we'll get right into it. Here they are. The first myth and misconception about busking is that big cities equals big money. And I've found that that is not necessarily the case. So in major cities, in really huge places, Uh, buskers are kind of part of the furniture, really. They're almost to many just sonic wallpaper. They're a very common occurrence, a very common sight, and people are just used to it. They're desensitized to it. Really, there's a lot of distractions in major cities, so much so that people can literally walk past you and not notice you. And not to mention there's a lot more competition in major cities, so that you got to factor that in as well. But with you go to a smaller town, and you find it's the opposite. Oddly enough, and I think it's because you're not as part of the furniture as much. People are not as used to you, and I think because people don't see you very often, they're not as used to you. I think people are more inclined to sit and appreciate you and listen to you. And I found that in these places they are all around more generous. And in some of these places, a lot of these towns are fairly modest towns. In terms of income, they're quite low income towns. Some of them, but I found in these places, they can surprise you. They really can. But yeah, people have this kind of grand idea, this grand and perhaps romantic idea. If you go to a big major city, it's paved with gold, and everybody will just throw gold into your case and everything like that. But yeah, I found that's not really necessarily the case. It tends to be the opposite in the small places. So yeah, that's the first myth about busking. Big cities doesn't always equal big money. Next myth about busking is that good weather always equals good money. I'm sure we've all been there before, a million times. We look out the window, it's a lovely day, sun is blazing, and it's just, it's 20 degrees, and you think, what, I'll get out and do some busking. Only to find that it's either, at best mediocre or just kind of just an average day. People are not that everybody's out, but not everybody's giving. But then you go out the next day and it's relatively overcast. It's just now it's not special. And all of a sudden you have a better day. I'm not sure why that is. I think we can all agree upon that being out in the sun and being, busking in ideal weather is just that's those are ideal busking conditions. I think we'd all agree we'd rather do that than stood outside, like, absolutely freezing our bones off. But yeah, that's another kind of misconception as well. Like, good weather doesn't mean that, a lot of people will be out, but it doesn't mean that everybody is going to be giving. So yeah, that's another one. That's another one I like to address as well. I'm still not sure why. Maybe a few people could answer that. But yeah, good weather, doesn't always equate to, generous punters. So yeah, next one. No busking video will be complete without the ill-conceived idea that we are indeed beggars, glorified beggars at that. That is probably the list of many comments that we have had aimed at us, that we are a beggar and that we are just, that we are no better than the kind of than the people who hassle others for money. And I'm not just saying this as a defense for buskers, but there are legitimate differences between begging and busking. Begging typically involves some kind of coercion or harassment, and you're deliberately trying to solicit money from people. You are deliberately harassing and hassling people for money. Busking is the opposite. Busking operates on a completely donations-based system. So in other words, people have complete freedom as to whether they want to donate to you or not. And, you are not asking people for money. That is the fundamental difference between begging and busking. You are not hassling people for money. You're merely just displaying your talents, displaying your ability, and if somebody wants to reward you for that, they can. If they don't want to, they can simply walk away. Those are the fundamental differences between busking and begging, but we still get lumped into the same category. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I'd like to clear that up at least. The next myth, which is somewhat similar to the begging one, is that we are homeless. People have asked me, and they've asked many of us, if we are homeless. There's not much more to say to this other than no, we are not homeless. We live in homes like other people. We just make a living in a slightly peculiar and perhaps alternative way. But yeah, there's not really much else I can say to that other than the fact that no, we are not homeless. I've definitely saved the best for last. This is not so much a myth or anything, but it is. It's more along the lines of a pet peeve. But it is something that is worth including and worth mentioning. It's a pretty big one. It's the question. It's the question that everybody is dying to ask. It's the burning question. How much do you make? How much money do you earn? Um, yeah, this question comes in many forms. It's just how much do you make on average? How much do you make a day? You're like, what kind of money do you make? It comes in. This question comes in many forms, and I find it to be very strange. If I'm really honest, I find it to be very peculiar. I have I don't know how people can be so open about asking that. People, despite the fact that we are basically a total stranger to a lot of people who ask this, they seem to have no reservations about asking it, not at all. And I found that to be very strange because you wouldn't just go up to somebody on the street and ask what their wage was or ask how much they earn. Um, yeah, it's a very peculiar question. And it's just you wouldn't ask anyone else it. And that's a pretty personal thing. That's not a question that you ask somebody if you don't know them very well. If you're friends with somebody and you're comfortable and you're in familiar company, yeah, the topic of earnings, might naturally come up. And there's no kind of real weirdness about that. But to go up and ask a total stranger that, really, you know, it can be, rightly so interpreted as a very invasive question. Um, you wouldn't go up and ask anybody else in any other occupation, or what they earn. It's a little bit strange to me how people don't seem to have any reservations about asking that. And yeah, it's and when you don't answer the question, and that's the thing, when you don't, when you're kind of naturally quite defensive about it, or you just say, well, no, I don't really want to tell you. People do get sort of a little bit angry about it, a bit defensive. So yeah, it's certainly a big one. It's not something that we tend to really discuss. We might discuss. Let's think other buskers, if they know each other well enough, might discuss it with each other. But we do it on a case by case basis, And so yeah, I had to include that one. That's certainly one that has come up a lot, and yeah, I'm still a bit curious as to why people think people think it's okay to ask that. In many cases, a total stranger. So yeah, very strange one. Very strange. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it entertaining and insightful, and hopefully cleared up a few of the myths surrounding busking. If you enjoyed the video, please like it and do subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much. I'll see you very soon.